Hi guys, welcome to the next spotlight session of this masterclass, and today we will be discussing why booming markets are the best time to leverage. But first up, we will be discussing housekeeping, and over to you, Amanda.
Hey everyone, very quickly. I know you've been here before, most of you, so we'll keep this quick. We don't replace your broker or your accountant. We're your strategic advisors. We are not your gatekeepers to finance. We are not your tax advisors. We can complement those services, but we don't replace them. So please keep your professionals close. You do need them. And of course, our legal disclaimer is there. Have a read over that. I think that's the quickest housekeeping I've ever done.
That's all you need.
If only real housekeeping was that quick.
Yeah.
All right, so this spotlight webinar comes in right at the very end. If you've watched these in order, congratulations, you're at the finish line. So why booming markets are the best time to leverage? So as you hopefully know, these spotlight webinars work in pairs. So the partner class to this one is about depressed markets. Today we're talking about booming markets. And this topic 10, follows on, I guess, from topic 3, where we looked at the property clock. So topic 3, webinar 1, using the property clock to time the market. That's where we talked about those natural fluctuations in the market because it's a live thing. It, responds to human emotion and sentiment. So where those booming markets or those, declining or recovering markets are doing their thing, how do you adapt your strategy according to those market movements? So today we're zooming in a little bit more on what to do when the market is booming, going absolutely gangbusters.
Okay, guys, as always, you have the QR code here. So book a session with myself, 15 minutes, ask any questions you have. Otherwise, you can go to propertysessions.com.au/15. I almost forgot about Okay, so yes, guys, as you may know, if you've watched the other Spotlight masterclasses, I'm going to keep this one brief, so I'm not going to extend it like I did before. My parents are from former Yugoslavia, migrated into Australia, into Sydney in the 70s, grew up as the only child in a loving household, but it was in a commission housing complex. So I was one of those children that was surrounded by kids who had, and I was the one who did not have. Okay. So that obviously is, sparked a little fire in me to achieve when I got into my adulthood. In my early 20s, started my passion business or passion of photography into a business. From there, started investing in my early 20s. And fast forward 40, it's not 40, I am 40. Fast forward 20 years later, have a decent portfolio running my, obviously, buyer's agency business. And now of passing on my knowledge to my kids and obviously my clients as well. So for obviously them and my clients not to be making mistakes I did at the start. Over to you, Amanda.
All right, my journey is a bit different. I went into a career in teaching, not photography. I taught English, high school English, for almost 10 years. So for me, my day job was always separate to my property investing. Um, I was always taught that property investing is something that you do on the side, but you still pursue a career that you love. So that is exactly what I did. I love reading, just like he loves photography, and I pursued my passion for reading and tried to sell that to teenage boys to varying degrees of success. No, it was good fun. I thoroughly enjoyed teaching, but then I had my babies. I had 3. So I didn't go back to teaching. I came here instead, and it's still teaching, but a different form of teaching. So for me, it's about, I suppose, pursuing my other passion, which is property investing and development. So I'm retraining, doing my master's in property development. Of course, I've got my teaching background, which allows me to do this. And that's pretty much my journey, almost 20 years of investing, following in the footsteps, I guess, of my parents who drummed it into me from a very young age. I'm doing the same with my kids. Growing up, my dad was a big follower of the rich dad, poor dad mentality, and always being,
Exactly.
yeah, massive. Dad was always subscribing to, the magazines, like the Property Investor magazines, and I was that kid that would sit on this. I was such a loser. My school was next door to a real estate office. It was Star Partners Parramatta, and the bus stop was right out. They used to hate us on rainy days sitting in their little doorway in their office. And I'd be that kid that would grab the Holmes pictorial and then read it on the school bus on the way home while everyone else was being cool. I was sitting there reading the Homes Pictorial. And then I would circle or doggy pages, and then I'd give the Homes Pictorial to Dad. And I'd be like, Dad, check out these properties. And I was like 13, couldn't do anything about it. But Dad and I would always discuss, even still to this day, our entire text chat is just realestate.com links. No discussion, because we'll ring each other after we send a link. But our whole chat history is just links to properties. So it's always been drummed into me from a very young age. So as I said, Dad was rich dad, poor dad mentality, in that you always speak openly with the kids, and Mum as well was exactly the same. They were always very open with us whenever they bought or sold or did something, or, the philosophy behind it. We were financially literate from a very young age, in terms of property investment. Couldn't tell you what the energy bill was or anything like that, but by the age of 12, I could map out your financial future if I wanted to, because they were very transparent. And I'm the same to a degree with my kids. I think kids are a bit different these days, and they're a lot more self-sufficient. My 6-year-old, through COVID, as a 3 and 4-year-old, she would watch documentaries herself on viruses. And she's a crazy child. So I'm careful with how much I tell her, because I think she's very, very young for it, but she's completely ready for it as well. I think sometimes we underestimate children and what they're capable of taking in. So I think my parents starting me young, it meant that by the time I did come of age to participate in a property transaction, there's little dog-eared pages in the Homes Pictorial, I could actually move forward on one of them. It was kind of second nature in my way of thinking by then. I still freaked out and I still got scared, and I still came and went in my motivation with it. But it was very much embedded within my mind and my knowledge of what to do. So I think that kind of, can we call it grooming? It's not really grooming, but it kind of was. Like, they sort of groomed the way that I thought, and it served me well.
I mean, they educated you.
They educated, yeah, but there was no allowance for deviation. So it was educating, but it was grooming in the sense that, you can't deviate. It was a cult. It was very cult, you have to do this.
We should start a little
Property
called the
cult.
property cult. Who's in?
Sounds negative, but it was a good thing, because if I were to turn around and say to Mum and Dad, oh no, I want to do this, they'd just look at me like, no, you're buying property. And there was no negotiation. It was like, you're buying property. And that's a cultural thing as well. My parents are both Italian, and Italian, or ethnics in general, they know and they understand bricks and mortar. They're scared of, shares, because they can't hold them. They don't understand them. They're scared of, Italians are very private, so they won't go to a financial advisor, because that involves telling somebody all their business. They don't do, my accountant is my cousin, my broker is my cousin, my builder is my cousin. You don't.
What goes?
Look,
Sorry.
this is the thing. We were raised not to tell people our circumstances, right? So before the internet, they didn't go to anyone for advice, because they didn't want to have to disclose their situation. They went to each other. It was that community, that village. The village did it together because they trusted each other. So I was raised the same way. Where your parents will tell you what to do. Don't go talking to that person. You don't tell them your business. We'll tell you what to do. So when I say cult, I'm being very dramatic. But you've got to understand that culturally, it was very much like that village mentality. So that's how we came to be here.
There we go. It feels like I'm, the way I'm educating my kids is like I was the father.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because I'm at that stage.
Yeah.
And
Whereas I was the beneficiary, I'm the child.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. It's kind of cool now, because I resented my parents for a lot of it, because they were very dogmatic in their views. But I'm doing the same thing to my kids.
Yeah.
So hindsight is wonderful. Just when you're a teenager, you don't want to hear it. That's all.
It's funny because my eldest one, who's 15 now, he tells me when he was 13, he looks at a property that we're looking at, and he goes, Dad, with that 600 square meter block, can we optimize and leverage from it and put a granny flat at the back and get high rental yield? And I'm looking at him going, okay, I wish I knew that when I was 13.
Yeah. Well, okay, we're storytelling now. This whole thing's getting hijacked.
Yeah, that's all right.
When I was a high school teacher, I had this year 8 class, and we used to grade the classes. And that particular year, I had the top year 8 class. I had all the bright students. And there was one boy in that class who was really into property as well. I don't know what his parents did, but he was really into property and he worked out somehow that I was as well. So he used to hang back after class and talk to me about property. I think it came up actually. He used to ride his bike to the local Homeworld and go look at all the houses on a weekend. And I was like, you're as cool as I was. But whenever I was on yard duty, he would come and like hang out with me as my little buddy, and he'd, show me properties or show me floor plans or, tell me which builders just built a new display home or whatever. Anyway, he's now pushing 30 himself. We're still friends.
Wow, really?
He ended up starting his own property management business.
There you go.
There you go, yeah. And he still keeps in touch and tells me what he's up to. And we sort of, you kind of become friends once they get on the other side of 21. But yeah, he always had the passion for property as well. So I think, you get in young and it grows with you.
All right, Amanda, what is a booming market?
A booming market. The media loves that word, doesn't it?
I know.
Boom. A big boom. Like it's a massive explosion.
Yep. Or you get a lot of people would try to sell you the next booming suburb.
Oh, mate. I love the word booming marketing. I don't think we need to tell you too much what a boom is. I think you have a fairly good idea. A boom is the top of the market. It's the peak of pricing. It's when FOMO is at its highest. It's when prices are at their highest. It's when the media is at its most intense. Everyone's obsessed with what their properties are worth because they've all gone up 30% in the last 18 months. And, boom times are like, oh my God, when is the crash? Once the media's really pumped that boom narrative, they start with the when is the crash narrative.
Yeah.
So everyone knows when we're in a boom market because the media doesn't let you forget. But also the other people that don't let you forget are your other professionals, like your broker. Excuse me, I'm still hiccuping from this hot chocolate. Your broker might call you to refinance, or that's when people start talking about buying an investment property because they've got equity. Or at the barbecue, people talk about how crazy property prices are and how are our kids ever going to do it. Those conversations come up constantly.
Yep.
So what actually happens in a booming market when we take the media out of it and when we take the noise out of it and the, all that barbecue chatter out of it, what is actually happening boots on the ground in the market? So just as we did with the partner masterclass list, we've broken it down into buyer side, seller side, and agent side. And when I say the agent, I mean the selling agent. So on the buyer side, this is where we have peak FOMO. So there's urgency, there's competition. You go to an open home, those open homes are packed. You've got agents really pumping, like if you make an offer, you've got to make it quick because I got 5 other buyers ready to sign up right now. There's real urgency and FOMO in the market. Because of that, buyers are less likely to do thorough due diligence because someone else is ready to sign up. So just don't worry about the building and pest. He will provide you a building and pest, just sign up. If they're providing you a building and pest, just know that it is biased to their advantage and to their favour. So still get an independent one if you have the time in a booming market, or better yet, don't buy in a booming market. Don't let that pressure make you forfeit your rights. And speaking of forfeiting your rights, often key terms will be negotiated out of contracts. For example, cooling off periods. So particularly in Sydney now, even not in boom times, it's become quite a norm to purchase with a 66W, which means you're forfeiting your right to a cooling off period. And now in Sydney, there's still cooling off periods and you can still negotiate them in, but the default now is kind of becoming that if you want the property, you've got to go unconditional straight away. So real estate agents are really good at creating a sense of urgency and making you as a buyer feel like you're going to miss out if you don't agree with their terms. So during a boom, that's when this influence is most intense because that's when you as a buyer have the most competition from other buyers. So what's going on the seller side? The seller pretty much has all the power in a boom market because they know that their property is hot and it's going to sell because there is no shortage of buyers and there is no shortage of finance because interest rates haven't started creeping up yet. We're in a boom. People have money. People have access to finance. People are willing to pay a little bit too much for their property because of FOMO.
Yep.
So the seller knows that they have all the power. Now, a lot of agents, because they...
Sorry to cut you in. Maybe you want to explain what FOMO means.
FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yep, fear of missing out. Just in case someone doesn't know. All right.
Sorry. Here I am in my head like you're in here with me, but you're out there. So I've got to remember that sometimes. Okay. Where is that up to? Oh, more likely to go to auction. So what can happen sometimes is in a boom market, vendors are going to want top dollar, right? Because they overvalue their own property because everything is overvalued. So then they'll add like an extra premium and overvalue it again. So for an agent who's got a lot of stock to turn over and a lot of buyers, and they want to keep that stock moving. So they'll go to auction. They'll encourage an auction campaign because 3 weeks done and dusted, that property's sold, they clear the deck, they move on to the next one. What an auction does as well is it shows the vendor where the market is really at. So the vendor doesn't keep pushing for more money, more money, more money, because the agent doesn't want to put in that time and effort in a boom market, especially when they've got 30, 40 parties attending every open and they've got to do all the callbacks. So there's pros and cons with an auction, and I am going to deviate a little bit because a lot of people think auctions get top dollar for a property, and they can in a boom because there's that momentum and that emotion, but they don't always get top dollar. Especially in markets other than booms. So just to deviate for a moment, if you imagine, you're at an auction and the top bidder gets the property, right? Because they're willing to pay the most. We don't know what that top bidder's limit would have been. So an auction sale price is actually the second highest bidder's price plus a bit, right? So when you're selling, if you're the seller selling at auction or if you're buying at auction, no matter what, people worry about overpaying. No matter what, you have to overpay for a property because if you're not the one paying the most, you're not the one buying it. So by definition, no matter what you buy, you're overpaying because you're the top buyer. But at an auction, you're kind of insulated from that because you don't know where the ceiling was for that top buyer because it's the second buyer's price plus a little bit. So if you're selling at auction, be really careful doing that in slower markets because you need 2 people that are cashed up, not just one. You're better off finding an agent that's a really good negotiator to get the most out of the one cashed up buyer if you don't have the second one to drive up the auction. So in a boom, you'll see that there are more auctions because agents are confident that they're going to have 2 people battling it out and pushing the price up. If they don't have 2, there's no point going to auction. The only reason an agent would go to auction, particularly in a depressed market, is if they've got a vendor that wants too much money and they need to pull the vendor's pants down at auction to show them that there's no buyers. If a vendor keeps saying, I want more money, I want more money, I want more money, sometimes I go, all right, well, let's do an auction so that the agent can show the vendor there's no market for their property at the price point that they're after. So we could do a whole masterclass on auctions, but there's like the mini version, just so you're aware of the politics behind auctions. So on the seller side as well, they want extra money and they do usually get it in a boom market. Also, average or inferior properties also get top dollar. So you get people that are priced out. They keep missing out on the properties they really want because the market keeps going up and they can't chase it. So people start to compromise on what they want or they start to pay too much for the properties with less competition, such as the lemons, because they just want to get in. That FOMO means they just want to get in. So again, if you're the seller and you have a lemon to sell it during a boom, because anything sells during a boom, especially those people that keep trying to chase a rising market and they can't catch it, they'll buy the lemons because that's all they can buy, particularly if there's less competition on a lemon. So if you're selling lemons, sell them during a boom. Okay, so the agent in a boom, he doesn't have to work as hard because properties are selling themselves during a boom, but he does have a lot of people coming through his opens and that's a lot of callbacks. So he wants to limit that by flogging properties quickly. So they'll create a bit of urgency. They'll pick their top 2 buyers and just hash it out with them. They'll go to auction. They'll try and keep that stock moving because they want to advertise, hey, we got top dollar in 48 hours, sell with us, right? It's marketing for them too.
That's right.
So if you want to buy something in a boom and you're not quick enough and not cashed up enough, there's no point. Now, we're talking here as investors. As investors, by nature, we're bargain hunters. Boom times are not the time to get a bargain unless you're buying the lemons. So for us as investors, this is your time to offload, not your time to buy. Okay. So just be aware that it's easy to get swept up in the FOMO as an investor because everyone around you seems to be making money. And they probably are. But if you are a good investor, you would have done your buying already. So have faith in your process and know that, okay, people are making money now, but you're in the market too. It's okay. Now, the other thing you get in a boom is a lot of new agents enter the market. You get a few inexperienced ones because they see everyone making money and they want in on that. So you'll find there's this massive influx of fresh agents. You might have mates, oh, I've decided to become a real estate agent. You're like, here you go. I don't know, or does that just happen in Meister sort of one?
Oh, no, I'm laughing because yeah, it happens.
Yeah, and they last like 3 months and then they go back to being a
Oh,
mechanic.
I gotta work on Saturdays. I mean, it's after hours and
Or the market cools off and they realize, "Oh, it's not as easy as I thought."
yeah.
And then they end up going back to where they came from. But you'll get, in a boom, you'll get a lot of cowboys that have, like, dived in. They sort of work through the boom and then they sort of fall out of the market when the market dips.
Yeah.
So try and stick with agents that know what they're doing, or if you're buying and you've got an inexperienced agent, take advantage of them. Take advantage of their inexperience. My favorite, sorry, another story. This is like story time on. We bought a development site. It was in Blacktown Council. And I'm so sorry. I feel bad because the agent was actually a really lovely guy, but he was an older agent and he had no one for this property. It was obvious because we were the only people showing up to the opens. And he had this beautiful little junior working for him. Lovely girl, but just said way too much. So
They're the best.
so the routine that my husband and I use, because we're still young enough to get away with it, we had the same shtick every time. We act like first home buyers. So we lie through our teeth to real estate. And they're probably watching this going, oh, remember her. They're not first home buyers. But we act like first home buyers. And the shtick we use is my husband is the negotiator and I'm the nervous Nelly wife. So I walk in there going, oh, my husband just doesn't keep me in the loop. I don't really understand. I'm really scared. Like, they can't really afford. And I could win an Academy Award, right? And this little junior, she was young. She wanted to show off her knowledge and how good she was at her job. And she goes, don't worry, the vendor doesn't really care. Honestly, I think he would take this much. And I go, it's like 200K below asking price. And I'm going, oh, do you reckon? I don't even know if we can afford that. Well, I'm just so scared. My husband, I really want the big backyard. I wanted to subdivide the block. I didn't care about the backyard. But we're there and Stephen's distracting the senior agent, talking man to man. Senior agent doesn't care about the wife, the dumb wife. I don't want to talk to her. So I was extracting information from the junior. And then we got back in the car afterwards and Stephen goes, oh, yeah, no, they want too much money. I go, no, they don't. Offer this much. And we offered a bit below what the junior had said. And we ended up sitting on that offer for, I think, about a month. And Stephen was going, are you sure you sussed out that junior? I go, Stephen, trust me, I sussed out that junior. Don't budge. And the senior agent's hassling him. And I said, don't budge. She told me the vendor will take it. A month later, the vendor took it. And I felt terrible because you're taking advantage of 20-year-olds, but also the senior agent should have been watching her. You get in these boom markets, and that was quite a hot market too, but, it was a development site, and developers aren't buying in booms, right? Because they want instant profits. They're not buying at the top of the cycle. Whereas in our case, it was a dart throw and we got it. But if you can see inexperienced agents there, or if the juniors got loose lips, use that to your advantage. It's all part of the negotiations, right? So
Yep.
if you're watching, I'm not sorry. But,
It is what it is.
it's part of the game. And we ended up befriending the vendor anyway, and he didn't care. He was fine. So he was a developer himself. He'd already subdivided a whole bunch of them, and that was the last one left. So anyway, story time. That was fun. Okay, so where am I up to? What happens on the investor side in a boom? So we've kind of covered this, right? It's not really the time for investors to be buying in a boom. Now, that's not to say that we aren't immune to feeling like everyone else but us is making money. You've just got to know that your portfolio is there doing it, seeing that equity is growing. So the problem we have in boom markets is that investment grade stock suddenly becomes owner occupier or first home buyer stock because people have to compromise, right? So those entry level properties that us investors love, suddenly the first home buyers are diving in and grabbing them because they don't want to miss out. Same with the premium stock, it's no longer a bargain. So if you're one of those people investing in the higher price points, your upgraders or your families are starting to buy those. So again, they're not investor grade stock either anymore in a boom. Reason being is that rental yields are plummeting because those purchase prices are going up faster than what rent is going up relative to purchase price. So your rental yields start to drop. So unless you can carry that negative cash flow, or if you're somebody whose income is benefited by negative gearing, and please do watch our masterclass on negative gearing because we get a lot of questions on that going, oh, negative gearing is just for rich people. We explain that and why that belief exists in our negative gearing masterclass. So please do catch that one if negative gearing sort of tangles up your brain. But also in this case, property prices do get too high to justify investment purchases. So in a boom, we typically say clever investing only, or in the case of my little subdivision block, developers aren't in those sorts of markets. So if you can pick up a subdivision cheap, then it might be worth it, but you might have to lie a little bit to the agent. Okay, if you have an existing portfolio, so as I said, your properties are still growing equity. Now is the time to take that equity out. So we talk about that in our timing the market webinar masterclass. So I won't get into it too much here, but we want to be extracting our equity when it's worth the most. So at the top of the pricing cycle, the peak price, that's when you go to your broker and you redraw everything to 80%, because we don't want to pay LMI. We still want to keep our loans at 80%, but we want the biggest, I suppose, uptick in price when we pull out that 80%, because what we want to do is load up our offset accounts, ready for that dive down back, back down through the depressed market into the recovery. And then we want to be buying around there when we've got as much money as possible. And we've refinanced before interest rates go up. Because remember, when the market is hot, at some point they're going to want to pull that in by raising interest rates. Lending gets harder. So you want to take all that equity out before that lending door closes. So as an investor, when everyone else is buying, be fearful when others are greedy. We're not buying when everyone else is buying. We're setting up our cash buffers for when everyone else is too scared to buy. That's when we want to buy. So this masterclass and the partner masterclass to this on what to do in a depressed market, watch these two together so you can work out that you're actually going to be doing the opposite to what everyone else is doing and why.
Yep.
Okay. Anything you want to add here?
Nope. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I feel like this one's become story time.
It has been. It has been.
It's been fun.
It's good.
We're making friends.
Definitely.
All right.
Sell or refinance?
Sell or refinance. So we talked about this is where you draw out your equity. So why would I encourage you to draw out your equity instead of selling if your property is worth the most it's going to be worth until the next boom? If you sell, you're triggering costs such as capital gains tax, transaction costs such as legal fees, agents' commissions, marketing fees, and you're also forfeiting an income stream. You're going to lose that rental income. Whereas if you refinance and you just take out the equity, you can access that money tax-free because you haven't actually sold the property yet. Okay, you can redeploy. You'll pay the tax on it when you do sell, but for now you have tax-free use of the full amount of that money. You can avoid transaction costs, so you don't have to pay for marketing or agency. And if the property is tenanted, you're not losing an income stream. So if you can hold the property, then why wouldn't you, right? And remember as well, if you're drawing out equity, you're not really taking out more loans if you're putting that money in offset. You're just moving where that money is situated, but you're not spending it yet, you're spending it later. So if you're worried about borrowing too much, if you leave it in your offset, it doesn't actually affect your repayments.
Yeah, it doesn't increase your repayments.
No, that's a conversation to have with your broker, but just be aware that taking out the equity and putting it in offset versus leaving the equity sitting in the loan, the advantage to you is having that money available to you, particularly while lending allows for that.
Yeah, that's right. It gets you pretty much prepared for when a great deal comes.
Correct. And you want to always be ready when it's a good deal, because good deals can sometimes take you by surprise.
That's right.
Now, some reasons that you should sell during a boom: if you've got a lemon, offload your lemons. If the property has served its purpose. So in my case, I talked about a subdivision block. If I had done the subdivision and I'm using one to pay for the other one, then the one that I want to sell to pay for the other one, I would sell that one during a boom because it served its purpose. I wouldn't sell it during a low market unless I had to collect the rental income, save my CGT. Not my CGT, my GST. If just you sell it rented, then you sell it as an ongoing concern. You don't pay capital gains tax.
Yep.
There's a tax accountant question. But if you wait for a boom, you're getting more money for it and you can avoid, as I said, GST possibly, but that's an accountant question. Or if your strategy was always to sell that particular property, as I said, if it served its purpose. So there are reasons to sell during a boom, but generally you actually get more money if you just refinance. Generally,
yeah. Okay, guys. So here we have it. Now, anyone out there who has any questions, they want to discuss anything with myself directly, here's the QR code. Scan this and book a time in. Otherwise, you can go to propertysessions.com.au/15 and book there. Have your questions ready, whatever they are. You've got 15 minutes with me and happy to have a chat with you.
Can I tell one more story?
Oh, here we go. Go for it.
No, I was just thinking of, You know how I said we had to sell that block of land? Was that in this webinar or the other one?
That was this one.
To sell the block of land to buy the house. Was it this one or the
I
last
think it
one?
was this one.
Anyway,
It's all merged.
so I was just going to talk about my lying, my horrible habit of lying and acting like a first home buyer. We bought the block of land at auction.
It was this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we bought the block of land at auction, and I had this little trick where I always ring the auctioneer. I always ask the agent, who's your auctioneer? And then I always ring the auctioneer to suss out the auctioneer. So I hadn't dealt with this auctioneer before, and I'd rung him up and I've done the whole, I'm a first home buyer. I've never been to an auction before. I'm really scared, carrying on like a distressed woman. And they eat that up, man. The bigger the ego, the more they eat that up. And I've kept this auctioneer on the phone for a good half hour, and I was like, oh, give me some tips. What should I do? Will you look out for me? Like, give me a nod, whatever. He's like, yeah, you'll be fine. Anyway, we got the property and whatever. Again, became friends with. I'm really good at becoming friends with them after I lie to them because they're like, oh. So I became friends with this auctioneer, and I told him months later, yeah, that was not my first auction. And he's like, yeah, I'll work that out. Thanks for letting me know. And I was like, look, I'm sorry I lied, but it was necessary at the time. And he goes, hey, don't hate the player, hate the game. And ever since he told me that, my guilt, my conscience has completely absolved itself of any wrongdoing. So I'm like, he's actually right. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Look.
So I don't know if he'd like naming him, so I won't name him, but he's very well known as an auctioneer. So if you're from the Hills area, you'll know who he is. So thank you for absolving me of any wrongdoing.
That's Hills area in Sydney, by the way.
Hills area in, yeah. Well, as soon as everyone knows which auctioneer I'm talking about. But yeah, he changed my mindset on that. So I thought I'd throw that in there.
Awesome.
Mm.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Until the next spotlight. See you then.